to our next tight topic. This tight topic is on transformation tools, and these tools are going to be the fun transformation tools. The second one I've done, the first transformation tools were basically more simple, and the ones that you'll use most of the time in photography. These tools you'll use mostly in compositing images, combining images, changing things, perspective, and things like that. You'll see what I mean when I get into it. They are the more fun tools, at least for me. I like them. Hope you like them also. So let's look at this picture here. The tools we're going to be talking about are three. Getting into Photoshop, you'll see under Edit, you'll see one called Perspective Warp. That's a great tool for changing perspective on things like buildings and stuff like that. We can talk about that. Then under Filters, we're going to get into Liquify and Vanishing Point. Okay, the first one, Liquify, is the one that if you're famous or want to become famous, you use a lot. So let's click on Liquify, and we get this character here who's standing on a cruise ship out in Chile somewhere. But certainly if he wants to publish this image in all the famous magazines where movie stars exist, he needs some changes. It doesn't look good that way. So let's do the changes that are required. On this particular panel that pops up after I do Filter Liquify, I get a lot of different tools. There's some brush options here, and you can see if the circular image right here, the brush. So right there. And I can change the brush size by hitting the bracket keys back and forth. All right. And if I want to use this brush to liquify, I will go to the tool up here, Forward Warp tool, and I can use this thing to make this dude's shoulders a little broader. I don't want to do too much because as I push out, I'm also warping the land behind it and everything else. To do this properly, I probably should have pulled this guy out as a separate layer, but I can gently nudge these shoulders out, and you can imagine what Kim Kardashian and other people would think of this. This guy's got some football players. If I had my biceps out here, I could really do some good work on them. So make sure the little circle of the brush you have is slightly bigger. You can't be little teeny brush, or you're going to get these little funny ripples. And I can make this other shoulder come out a little bit more. You can see I'm getting some warpage in the land behind there a little bit, so that you got to be careful doing that. And then, of course, like all good guys, I need a smaller stomach here. So this is basically what this tool is. Be gentle with it, because now I'm warping the bar behind here. There's probably better ways of doing this. I could have put myself in a separate layer and done it that way. So that's what this tool does there. And then the second thing it does, if you look on the right-hand side, if there's several faces, you can select face 1 or 2, whatever. But there's only one face in this thing. I can change eye size. Now the eyes aren't prominent enough in this picture for you to see that, but you can change the tilt and the eye size, the right and the left eyes separately. Eye distance, nose height. You'll be able to see the nose height here. If I go up and down, I can give myself a longer nose or shorter nose. So let's do the long nose on this one. The nose width, I can make it more narrow or wider. So a little bit narrower nose is a good looking thing. And as you go through here, I can make myself smile a little bit. Upper lip, lower lip, yeah, pulling the lower lip a little bit. Looks a little better that way. Mouth width. You can see the changing in the mouth there, the width of the mouth. Mouth height. So you can see what you can do with this kind of thing, and of course jawline. Let's get this dude a better jawline. All right. So now you've seen what I can do with this Liquify tool. Welcome to Hollywood. Okay. So that's what the Liquify tool will do. So that was under Filter, Liquify. Let's do Vanishing Point now. Vanishing Point is good when you're trying to lay a picture. For example, if I wanted to lay this poster here, or this whatever you want to keep, wall mural that I found up in Denison of Captain Sully Sullenberger on another building, I could do that and change its perspective. For example, I could put this brick facade on this building here in Iceland. Now, I don't know what they were thinking in Iceland when they built this building. It looks a little off to me, and it certainly would look better with a brick facade instead of glass. So let's give that a shot. But in order to do that, you'll see the facade of the building, the perspective of the building is different than my perspective of these other pictures, which is flat, right? So I've got to change these other pictures into that perspective. So what I'll do is lay a grid on top first. Click the four corners. The first thing I'll do is go to Filter, Vanishing Point. Okay, this is for using for doing what I'm about to do now. When I come up with that, I come up with a pop-up menu, and it's asking me to put a grid in here, and it gives me some ideas of what to do right here. It says click the four corners of the plane. So that's what I'll do. It's one corner, and as I go out here, I'll go corner and corner here. I'm looking right at the blue line right along the roof line and trying to make that even and trying to make the line in the end perpendicular to the ground. I've done that. Now if you look carefully, you'll see some grid lines. I'm looking at the grid lines here and trying to make sure that I have them lined up pretty close to the perspective of this building. Now the perspective of the building is a little strange because these windows are not what you would totally expect, but I'm assuming that these window lines are straight. So looking at that blue line there, I've got to lift this side up just a touch, okay? So I can lift this thing up. Let's see, I can put it in and out. I can take this, lift it up just a touch, and this up just a touch. Okay. I'm going to say that perspective is about right. Let me look at this thing here. Well, so once you get the perspective about right, it's not going to have to be perfect. We've got that it's close to right. All right, let's say we got the perspective right. Something I should have done before I started this thing, but let's go back here. I'll say okay. Now it's kept the perspective. If I go into perspective work, it'll have it. Let me go back to say the brick facade here. This brick facade. I put them on its own layer, and it's important that you do this in this order. I'm going to select everything, Command A. Make sure you do the Command A, select all. That's copy everything, or select everything, and then Command C, copy. Command C, copy. All right, now I've copied everything here. I'm going to go back to my picture of this building here. I'm going to go back to Filter, Vanishing Point, where we created the grid, and the grid's still here. Okay. Now that I'm in this picture here, I'll do Command V, which is paste. So we pasted the bricks into this thing. Now going down here and using the transform tool, I will take these bricks and drag them into you'll see what happens when I drag them in. It changed the perspective on the bricks, right? So now I've got bricks that line up with the wall. I can now go and using the shift key, I can drag these bricks out. I'm using the shift key because I'm changing perspective on this particular thing. If I didn't use the shift key, it would just grow the whole thing. So as you can see, it created the bricks in and gave it the perspective of the building that I had drawn the grid to. The interesting thing is if I take this and drag it completely out, it keeps its perspective. But let's go and put this back on this grid line. Now the building has a brick facade, which I think the architect probably would have to agree looks a lot better. And let's go and put that and say okay for that particular thing. All right, I can do some different things with this brick facade, but let's just for the fun of it put another item on it. Let me go back to the Sullenberger picture here. You can see I've got it selected already. I've gone through, and the way I use that is I use the quick selection tool and went around and selected the picture. Now that I've got it selected, I'm going to do Command J, which will copy this onto its own layer. Okay, it should. So now it's on its own layer. All right. Being on its own layer, having the layer selected, I'll do Command A, select all, Command C, copy, going back to my Greenland picture, and going back to, I'm going to put this on a separate layer so I can blend it in. So I'm going to put a blank layer in here, blank layer, going to filter, vanishing point again. The grid is still here. You see the grid is still here. Command V to paste. This is a little big, so I'm going to go to the transform tool again. I'm going to make this smaller because I want it to fit on that wall. Okay, now I'm going to take it and drag it in. It changed this perspective. That's pretty good. I'm going to make it a little bit. I'm not going to make it smaller that way. Let's drag it down, holding the Shift key. So I can change perspective, keep a different perspective. I've got the thing dragged in now. So okay, now it's laying on top of the bricks. I can go ahead OK now. Now I've got it where I want it. I've got this on its own layer, and the reason I put it on its own layer is now I can use different blend modes to make it look more realistic. Like, for example, darken shows the bricks going through there. So I just used darken blend mode, and I've got it. Now the building looks a heck of a lot better than it did before. It's got a brick facade with Sullenberger on the front. So that is the that was under filter, vanishing point. All right. Now the final one I want to show you, which is a great lot of fun, is take this building in Cuba. Suppose I took this building on purpose this way, but suppose I get home and say, you know, it would have been nicer if I was standing more off to the left or to the right of the building. I got a little slightly different perspective. Well, let's give that a try. You heard some slurping there. I'm having my tea while I'm doing this in the afternoon. It's a nice afternoon. So let's change the perspective of this building. In order to do that, we're going to have to do something different. Now, first of all, I'm going to get this building and put it on its own layer. Command J, putting on its own layer. All right. Now that it's on its own layer, I'm only doing that so I can keep the layer underneath without destroying it. Going to Edit, Perspective Warp, right here. Remember the vanishing point. You're also laying out grid lines on this thing. You see my cursor has changed to a little cross with something that looks like a grid line, and up above it gives me layout and warp. So I'm in layout mode right now. I'm going to go to the front of the building and click once. I'm going to create two grids, one for this side of the building and one for that side of the building. Okay. So as I'll click on the top point. Okay. And it starts to create a grid. I just created a grid. I'm going to drag the grid out. And I'm putting the grid, like I did in Vanishing Point, to match the building's lines, right? So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to bring this up a bit. See the roof line there? I'm trying to make this line up. Roughly with the roof line. It's okay if I'm outside the lines here of the image itself. It still works. So I've got that sort of down here. Probably could be a little bit better too. Okay, so I've got the front grid laid out. Now I'm going to want to have a similar grid down this side here. All right. I'll click anywhere outside here and start to drag. Okay. As I drag it, I can now resize it. As soon as I grab this and start to move toward the other grid line, it'll turn blue at some point. That's a second. There it is. Turn blue. Now I can, as soon as I do that, I just let go, and it'll snap to the other grid line. You see that one snap to it. Now I can take these other points, and go out and create a similar perspective line for that side of the building. All right, let's just say I've got that about right. Okay, now I've got this building set up roughly right. I can sit here and edit it a little bit, straighten it out a little bit better. Until I get it just about like I like it. A little bit better up here. Let's say for government work, that's good enough, right? Now that I've done the layout piece, I can go to the warp piece. Hit warp. I can click these lines here. For example, if I want the vertical lines to go vertical, I can do that. I don't really want that. I did some strange stuff. So let's go back to Command Z. I can do horizontal lines horizontal or both. And this just reverses what I did, remove the warp. But I do have warp selected. Uh, Let me anchor the center point here. So if I go into the middle of the center point and hold down the shift key, you see it turns yellow. I can click on that center point. It makes it vertical and it's yellow. It means that point is anchored. Now if I want to change the perspective of the building, I can grab one of these top or bottom points and change the building perspective. So now I'm taking this building from a different angle, or that angle, depending on which angle you like better. So that's it. So that's that tool. I'll select it. Now something to notice when you did that. Okay, if I take the bottom picture and make it go disappear on you, you do end up with empty spaces, stuff like that around here, and you have to do something about filling that or doing something better with it. If I leave the bottom image on, you don't see the spaces that much, but you do see a line here. So there's some editing you'll have to do to fix that up. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little session on advanced transformation tools. We'll see you next time, and I'll look for our next tight topics.